Hi everyone, and welcome to the Scorpio July 2021 self-connection reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and meaning-based spiritual coaching services. I am Lauren. Welcome. So this is one of 3 videos that I am completing each month for each sign. We have a self-connection reading, which is this reading, which brings awareness to your unique internal spiritual self. We have our spiritual connection reading, which is demonstrating how you connect that unique internal self with your external environment. And then we'll have our love connection reading, which talks about and discusses the dynamic between you connecting that internal unique self to everyone else's unique internal self. So it's your connection to others around you. And the reason behind these readings is not to look at predictive energies, but to bring awareness. Bring awareness to your uniqueness so that you can go ahead and authentically express that, both to help you engage more meaningfully with your external environment, but also to help you really be able to feel and sense and be able to see your place and purpose, as well as to feel emotional fulfillment from living as your highest self into the external environment. Now, all of my readings utilize the 3 principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation, which is engaging the Triad of Engagement. And that is a coaching tool I have developed that really helps to take a look at those 3 principles and actively show you how to engage them together to be able to unlock self-awareness as well as external awareness to where that unique part of yourself actually belongs in your external environment. All right, so Scorpios, I am going to start with the Power of Surrender deck. We are going to pull a card for curiosity. So this is curiosity. We start with this principle to help us open up, to become receptive. So if we think about the concept of curiosity, curiosity really is about being curious about whatever you're directing curiosity towards. And that does involve an optimistic, open sense of receptivity. So if you're directing curiosity towards your external environment, you're staying open and receptive to your external environment. But in this reading, we're actually turning that curiosity within. And when we're thinking about being open and receptive to our internal self, this is actually an area where we can become blocked, where we can stop engaging with certain aspects of ourselves, either because it's too painful to go there, or it almost becomes a point of frustration because there are parts of yourself that you've hidden away for a reason. In the spiritual connection reading, I go a little bit more into what I call the void, which is how we build disconnection between ourselves and the external environment through fear and anxiety and wanting to protect certain aspects of our internal self. Now, for this month, when we're thinking about being curious about our internal selves and kind of opening that up, clearing the way, trying to clear what can oftentimes taint curiosity in our older life experience of that concept, which is when we turn optimism into pessimism. And instead of being open to finding new, interesting things, we become closed. We kind of fall into the energy of, I already know that. I'm already this way. I can't change. And in reality, we're always changing. We ourselves are changing. Our external environment is changing. But we get a chance to experience an element of control in our change by being able to control our own change, our own perspective, our own internal spiritual growth, so that then we can manifest the changes we want to see in our external environment through the changes that we start with internally first. So this month, For your point of curiosity, we have the card, it says surrender fear. And it says, let go of the fearful stories you are telling yourself. Stay in the moment. Focus on solutions and celebrate every baby step forward. So when we're thinking about curiosity, this is going to be the kind of overarching message you're going to ask yourself to bring awareness to yourself throughout the month. So when you're thinking about surrendering fear, and it says here for that first sentence, let go of the fearful stories you are telling yourself. Where are those fearful stories coming up for you? When you think about fear and you think about turning your awareness inside, what part of yourself are you afraid to show? What part of yourself are you afraid to face? Now, this can be this is a very tricky place. Fear is a very difficult emotion to navigate. It can be one of our biggest blocks, both in us authentically engaging with our external environment, but also with us connecting to our internal unique selves. Because again, this is where we stop ourselves with, the last time I brought up this part of myself, it was criticized. It didn't make me feel good when I tried to work with this ability. I failed. Or there's something within you that perhaps you've always wanted to follow, but due to external circumstances or external opinions, you haven't. And that's really where that whole stay in the moment, focus on solutions, and celebrate every baby step forward, that sometimes what can happen is we label a certain part of ourselves as, and this is our unique internal part of ourselves, as not good, as bad, as almost, and I spoke in one of the other readings about sometimes looking at what we consider a weakness and turning it into a strength. And what can happen is that sometimes we actually have a strength lying dormant within us, but we look at it as a weakness because we're not quite sure how to engage with it. We're not quite sure what to do with it. Now, this could look like perhaps a deep-seated yearning that goes against either a familial kind of perspective, a cultural perspective, even a global perspective. So let's say you really want to, let's say in the workplace, you really want to pursue something that's going to challenge you artistically, but you don't come from a family that sees value behind that. And so your whole life you've hidden a part of yourself that really likes to be creative on an artistic level. And you have, through fear of bringing this out, and possibly this is simply just based on when you think about, let go of the fearful stories you're telling yourself, sometimes that can come just from us. It's not even what your family has told you, or you might have heard other people's opinions and then created stories around why you can't follow this yearning, this deep-seated desire. So for instance, maybe you heard people talk about how it's very difficult to make a living being an artist. It's very difficult to whatever it is, and you attach stories to it. Meaning, let's say you do want to have a family and you do want to have that home life and be able to prepare or to provide for them. But there's this element that, well, if I really pursue, though, the other part of myself that wants to be expressed, which is this artistic creative side, I won't be able to step up and provide for my family. I won't be able to make the money because I've watched things on TV that show that it's very difficult. They kind of perpetuate the starving artist stereotype, or because my family has said over and over again that people have to be doctors and lawyers and IT professionals, and that's the only way to make money or to make even a difference in this world. And so you kind of push back and push back and push back at that part of yourself. And you almost become fearful of it because it's almost like it becomes this dormant monster where if all of a sudden you were to tap into it even in the smallest way, you're afraid that it's going to overtake you with the desire that's now built up from it. It's kind of like, I've used this example in other readings and actually in a few of my other videos, the concept behind the movie Frozen and Queen Elsa, and how because she fearfully hid her power to work with the cold and being able to freeze things, she didn't know how to control it. And so she pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down and she thought it was bad. She thought it was her weakness. And when she finally gets pushed to a certain point to have to face and utilize this aspect of herself, it almost like explodes out of her control. But at the same time, she's so been yearning to express this part of herself that then she runs off and builds this, after shocking and scaring everybody, runs off and builds this incredible ice palace where she's like, I'm just going to live here by myself. And, I've been wanting to do this and now I'm finally free. But the issue between that, finally like just almost like vomiting your unique gift and ability and desire, some aspect of yourself that you've pushed back and pushed back, it then erupts like a volcano. And in that story Frozen, Elsa, in that moment when she's building that ice palace for herself, yes, it's a beautiful release of her finally being able to see the full extent of her power and to realize what it feels like to work with that unique ability in the external environment. But what's sad about it at the same time, and what's not healthy, is that she's doing it in a way where she expects that she's going to have to do it alone, that it's going to isolate her from her friends and others, and also isolate her from engaging more, with her external environment. She's going to have to close herself off. She basically has to choose between her gift or pushing it down and hiding it and trying to, be a normal person. And I think in what my belief is that we all have a place and a purpose to fill, and that's how we find meaning and value in our lives. And so even the craziest gift or ability, like being able to freeze stuff, where you think, well, where does this really come into play? It's actually dangerous and can harm people. Like she almost, kills her sister at a very young age. That it's my understanding and belief that there is a meaning for that. We each have something within us that is akin to Elsa's power to freeze. Something that is meant to be unlocked is like our true superpower. And no, it doesn't mean that, yes, you have to be able to like do magic like a Marvel superhero or like Elsa from the movie. It means that there's something specific to you, a true singularity to your life experience that is meant to be expressed in that which no one else can express. And in understanding that, this is where we can't repress parts of ourselves. This is where we can't, through fear, tell ourselves that this part of ourselves is not important. And then possibly let it explode, and then it becomes an isolating factor of like, well, I just can't have the family and support them, if I choose art over, my IT job. And so I'm just going to have to forgo that side and disconnect myself completely and just like sit in my 1-bedroom apartment and just do art. It's like, no, that art is meant to connect you on a more fulfilling level with others and life, and to bring color and beauty to your world. And so this is where we have to be curious. What is that part of ourself? What is that part of ourself we're holding back? What is that part of ourself that we feel if we were just given that little push to unlock, that it would almost come bubbling up like a volcano of like, woohoo! I get to be the veterinarian, or woohoo, I get to be the world traveler, or woohoo, I get, whatever it is. And yes, it might be scary because it's going to involve change, or you might not be able to quite control it. But that's what you're being asked to be curious about, is where you're telling yourself these fearful stories around some aspect of yourself that's beautiful and needs to be pursued and expressed. Now, I've also, kind of go back sometimes to the story of just kind of giving this as an example. We all have a desire for something different. So for instance, if you, let's say, have this raging desire to work with, pick something. You have this burning desire to work with children who have this specific disability, or you really want to work, let's just pick something strange. You go to the zoo, as a young child, you see, maybe it's dolphins or lemurs or elephants or something, and you watch something about these animals and it just stuck with you, and if you could get a chance to work in some capacity with this type of animal, it would just mean the world to you. Now, that's not something that occurs to most people. Like, that is something where you have to realize that's a unique drive and ambition and calling. And if you don't step up into that calling, then that part, that role that needs to be filled doesn't get filled. It doesn't get, and sometimes what the sad part of where we not only rob ourselves of being able to connect in this truly meaningful, purposeful way, and seeing like where this strange yearning is meant to be unleashed in our external environment, we also rob the collective human experience from elevating, because where we would have brought passion and this kind of the undying spirit, the indefatigable spirit of the human condition, when we feel passion and we tap into that core of our uniqueness, where we will overcome any obstacle, where we will become passionate. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody who has perhaps a profession that seems mundane to you, but they talk about it in this beautifully passionate way that it almost gets you excited, where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm excited about plumbing. I'm excited about HVAC systems, because they're so passionate. And that's the difference between somebody who's forced to take a role, let's say to work with elephants or, children with a specific disability, who doesn't really have a passion for that, but they just choose to fulfill the role, versus somebody who does and who will elevate that position and be a change maker in that position. And so that's where we kind of not only rob ourselves, but we rob the greater collective experience of really benefiting from us tapping into that superpower of ours. And that superpower is always fueled by passion. It's always fueled by that eternal flame that is your direct connection to spirit, to everything. So I know this has been kind of a lengthy one here, but for you guys, this first message of what to be curious about this month is a important one. Again, trying to overcome fear is a difficult, very difficult thing to do, but that's also where we fear the most is where we need to really bring the most attention to, because we shouldn't be fearing aspects of ourselves. Instead, we should be seeking to understand, seeking to unlock, and seeking to figure out how this is how we're meant to connect to it, and then how we're meant to connect this outward. So, as you're looking within and being aware, and you're asking yourself the question of curiosity as to what part of myself have I been fearful, the most driving part of yourself that you're not realizing currently. Now we're going to take a look at courage. So I'm going to pull a spirit animal card, oracle card, for the principle of courage. And courage is where we get to then bring awareness to how we take action on an internal level. Basically, we look at taking the courage to make the decisions to choose to take action on behalf of our internal, authentic, unique self. So if we're thinking about, okay, you're fearful about perhaps you wanting this driving part of yourself, this driving, passionate part that wants to become an artist, become, a painter, or somebody who graphically displays their creativity. Oh gosh, and I think this card came out for you guys in your last reading. So beautiful. What we're looking at here is, where now can you choose to take action? And action is the first step in overcoming fear. Now, this isn't about taking a giant step of action, meaning this isn't about being like Elsa, where she's pushed and pushed and pushed, and you let the volcano erupt, and all of a sudden you have to run off to the mountains and build your ice palace. This is about realizing, okay, there's this aspect of myself, this artistic part of myself that needs to be realized. It's scary. It's scary to admit it because it means that there's going to be change in my external environment. And it means that I'm also going to have to change and grow on an internal environment. I'm going to have to work with this different aspect of myself. And I'm going to have to start to change my perspective of it, to not be one of this is bad and this is something I have to keep hidden and this is something I can't bring out, to one of this could be my greatest power. This could be the thing that brings me the greatest joy. This could be the thing that really points me towards meaning. And so it turns into then, where can I start to take baby steps to integrate this into my life so that I can start to work with it, so that I can start to see, okay, it's not about just ditching my 9-to-5 job and telling my family that I can no longer be the breadwinner in the family and I'm just going to go live in a studio loft in New York and struggle to meet ends meet while I desperately try to paint or, do some type of artistic work. Instead, it's about, okay, taking small actions. Maybe I haven't been creatively challenged in a while. Why don't I sign up for an art class and start to see even what medium I want to work with? Step 2, maybe I'm going to go to Michael's Arts and Crafts or an arts and crafts type store, and I'm going to spend the money. Now, this could be a small or a large commitment, depending on what type of, artistic creativity you want to get into. But I'm going to make a small investment, and I'm going to maybe buy a set of paints and an easel and the paper that they go on. And I'm going to make that investment of resources. And this is where we start to just tap into work and unlock. So when you think about being a child, or watching a child learn how to use something, it's not often that they just get handed something and are like, oh, duh, like this is how it works. It's almost like watching them put together the puzzle. They're like, okay, you gave me this, and the blocks all fit in different ways. Okay, where does this block fit and how? Doesn't fit in this one, but it fits in this one. Okay, so then each block must have a specific place. So it's the step by step by step. And that's really the journey of life, is to unlock and learn more about your superpowers. So for you guys, we have in our point of courage, which is all about action and where you can start to take those authentic baby steps. And I think it's interesting, actually, in the surrender fear, that it specifically says focus on solutions and celebrate every baby step forward. So it is about the baby steps. It's not about launching into the ice palace. It's about baby steps towards unlocking this part of yourself so that there's no longer fear there. It's respect, love, and the realization that this part of yourself needs to be expressed. So we have butterfly spirit. Transformation is beautiful. And Scorpios, I really think that you guys are going through a great time of transformation. I think you're going through this point where The number here for this card is 11, and 11 in numerology is the number it's basically the portal between us and the divine. It's a portal where we get a chance to kind of open up and peer through what is to what can be. And I think part of your transformation is that you're realizing at this point that there are things changing in your life, and that when things change externally, things also change internally to meet. And this is where, when I talk about our external environment being more destiny-based and our internal environment being our free will, this is where they come into play together, which is we can meet change externally at the same level by changing within ourselves, by growing within ourselves, by admitting that we are turning into the butterfly. And what does the butterfly do? So even when you think about it, the butterfly, when you think about a caterpillar going through the transformation to become the butterfly, the caterpillar has to go through these incremental phases, right? It has to, live its life as the caterpillar, then it has to learn how to build its cocoon, then it has to patiently wait to transform into the butterfly. And then once the butterfly comes out, the butterfly has to slowly learn how to fly. It has to go someplace, dry its wings, become strong enough to be able to go out and then now act as the butterfly. And I think that this is kind of where you guys are at this point, is to not rush it, not to just be like, okay, fine, I've always wanted to be a veterinarian, so I'm just going to sign up for veterinarian school and go 125 miles an hour towards being a veterinarian. It's like, no, okay, let's get back into working with animals and see perhaps what specialty we might want to go into working with animals, and understanding and seeing where that just starts to unlock extra parts of yourself. And if it does mean going back to school, well, you'll eventually get there. You'll eventually get to veterinarian school. But to start with the baby steps first, it's about realizing and just letting that beautiful element of release and realization around, this is a part of myself I've always wanted to express. I've always been curious about wanting to follow. And then really feeling that beautiful release that comes with the dissolving of fear around this unique part of yourself. And to enjoy the baby steps this month in the day-to-day of maybe volunteering at an animal rescue place where you get a chance to work with perhaps some animals that are outside of what you would normally work with just in maybe regular animal adoption, like dogs and cats. Maybe you get to go to an animal sanctuary where they do have the lemurs and the neat kind of interesting animals, and you get to see, okay, do I want to work with big animals? Do I want to work with crazy, with like the off, animals? Do I want to, maybe what you thought was a, goal towards becoming a veterinarian is really about working and building your own animal sanctuary. And this is where we get to see where our abilities fit, while also in the moment getting to engage on a day-to-day basis with those abilities. So being able to spend some time to do some research as to where you can volunteer, spend some time to see, where perhaps you can even donate money towards an organization, anything that's going to engage that part of yourself, so that you can start to see where and why you have it and where it fits. And we have a second card that came out, which is Brown Bear Spirit. It says to take time out, and it's the number 9. And I love that this is the number 11 and the number 9, because the number 9 to me really focuses on the culmination of a period of our time, the culmination of a cycle where we now have this kind of magician-like ability to tap into all of the lessons we've learned in that cycle and then be able to apply them. So these combined together, the butterfly spirit transformation is beautiful, combined with brown bear spirit to take some time out. There is this moment, I feel like this month, as far as taking action, it's about you've you're becoming the butterfly. That part of yourself that you've pushed back and held back from a fear-based place has cocooned itself. And now when you're bringing awareness back to it, it's not going to come out in the same form that you originally had connected with it. So perhaps at a certain time in your life, this could have been back in childhood, or it could have been back in your 20s and now you're in your late 30s or whatever. There's that part of yourself where at a time when you were connecting with it, it looked like the caterpillar. Now when you re-engage with it, it's going to be so much bigger and brighter and different and have new aspects of it. And so this month, as you're discovering that, it's almost like letting, when it says take time out, it's almost like letting that butterfly come out, and you get a chance to see it in your hand, and you get a chance to let it dry its wings and get used to being out in the open, out in the air. And then you get a chance to take a look and say, okay, a lot of time has passed since I connected with this part of myself. Now, where can I take the lessons I've learned in this last cycle up until this point, and how can I apply them to this new version of this part of myself? This realization of something that's been there but now looks a little different, feels a little different. And how can I apply the confidence I now have in myself in other areas and a skill sets that I've learned in other parts of myself, and now bring it back and see, how can I apply that to this part of myself? Perhaps now this is where you realize, oh, as a child I used to think I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I realized in going through life, I'm not really one to want to, I'm not one to go back to school and study. I'm not one for science. It just wasn't my thing. But what I have realized is that I am great one-on-one with people. I'm great at organizing events. I am a natural born salesperson when I'm working with something I'm passionate about. And what I've realized now in digging back into this part of myself that loves animals, I realize how much I want to protect animals, how much I want to show and demonstrate to others that certain animals, species need to be protected. I want to be a source of funding and a source of education. And I'm going to use my ability to connect people and connect with people from a place of passion, and my ability to create and organize events that bring people together around causes, and my natural salesmanship abilities around this cause. And I'm going to bring it all together and apply this towards my love of animals in a different way. And that's how we can start to take baby steps towards working with an internal part of ourselves that needs to be expressed, but in a new way. Okay, and Scorpio, last but not least, I'm going to pull a card for Contemplation. Now, Contemplation is the third and final principle in the Triad of Engagement, and it is as equally important as curiosity and courage, because this is where we get a chance to connect the dots between what we're bringing awareness to through curiosity, where we chose to take action based off of our findings. And now we look at the consequences and we look at lessons learned, and this is where we get to integrate them. This is our seat of continued self-education. And this is what prevents us from getting stuck, from us really getting stagnant. And when we think about this as a self-connection reading, this is preventing us from getting stagnant in repeat patterns that keep parts of ourselves from being expressed. So this is where we can prevent ourselves from constantly choosing to jump from job to job to job and constantly complain that each job we choose is has all the same issues. It doesn't challenge me. It's boring. I don't like my coworkers, yada and so forth. And instead of realizing, well, maybe it's not the job. The one thing in common behind all of these random jobs I've taken is me. And if I'm being self-aware and I'm choosing to be engaged in where I take action, what I'm going to realize in contemplation is that it's not the jobs that are the issue. It's that I'm not facing and utilizing a part of myself that needs to be expressed in any of those jobs. And so I need to now refocus on taking action towards finding where this part of myself fits into the work world. It's a perspective change. And again, so this allows us to not be allows us, our internal parts of ourselves, to not become stagnant. And we have soul family. And it says, call in your tribe, you don't have to do it alone. And this is beautiful, because oftentimes when we are going within, we feel so much, and especially when we're dealing with parts of ourselves that involve an aspect of fear. We feel like we almost have to, like, as we start to uncover this part of ourselves, hide that we're doing that because we're afraid. Like, what if we uncover this part of ourselves and I fail at trying to, the first time I tried to work with it? You know, what if I take that, what if I do sign up to go back to school and I don't actually graduate, so I just won't tell anybody about it? Or what if I buy the paint set and all the paints, and the first painting I create is awful to my standards? And I don't want anybody to ask to see it because it could be scary. Or, what if I am looking to work again with animals and I can't find any place to volunteer, and then everybody knows that, they're going to keep asking me about it. Well, where are you volunteering? Well, what animal sanctuary are you working with? And it then becomes this point of like, well, I haven't done it yet. And instead of hiding this part of yourself even further, the whole purpose of bringing awareness to this part of yourself that needs to be expressed is to bring it out, is to work with it. And the more that we talk to people about this aspect of ourselves in a positive, in a passionate way, this is where we start to unlock and be curious as to its place and its purpose. Because the more you start to tell people you're working with this aspect, the more people are going to engage with it as well and say, and be there to support you. And oftentimes this is actually where we get the aha moments from our external environment around an internal part of ourselves, because somebody will say, oh, you know what? I have a friend who also left her 9-to-5 job and works with lemurs in Africa. And it was a crazy story. She just signed up here, got on a plane there, and now she's over in Africa working with, she's in Madagascar working with lemurs. And you're like, wait, what? And oh yeah, let me just connect you with her. Here, you guys can connect on social media and she can help you out. And you would have normally never even known that option existed unless you were curious enough to admit this part of yourself that really needs to be expressed, and then to be confident enough to express to others, to get past that fear, to say, yeah, this is actually part of myself I've kind of been curious about, and I'm looking into it again. Or you want to go back to school and somebody pops up and says, oh my gosh, yeah, I did the same thing, 4 years ago. Make sure not to make these mistakes. Make sure to look into this first, see about this scholarship, really know that you need this amount of time. And it's those kinds of things that allow us to then build and unlock and really understand, what and where and how to work with this element of ourselves. So kind of like in the movie Frozen with Elsa, if she had gone to her parents or gone, to somebody after almost, having this crazy accident with her sister as a child and said, I need to learn how to control this. I want to work with it, but that was a scary, horrible situation that happened. Is there somebody else who has this power that I can work under? Or why do I have this power? What else can I do with it? And where can I start on a small level? And I'm going to dial this back a little bit. And this is where we're not really, I think, sometimes pushed as children. We don't have the supportive environment, both in our standard education system, but also even in a familial environment, to really be pushed to continue to work with aspects of ourselves that perhaps we got a negative response to begin with. And so we then emotionally tie fear to that aspect of ourselves instead of emotionally tying meaning and fulfillment to it, but just saying, okay, well, this is part of you. This is what this is something you want to do. Let's try again. Next time, let's try it in this way. Maybe drawing all over the walls in your bedroom and your parents yelling at you for doing that. Maybe that wasn't the best start to developing your artistic career or your mural painting dream, realizing your mural painting dream. But what should happen if you're with supportive parents or a supportive education system is that instead of coming in and saying, oh my God, this is awful, I can't believe you just drew all over the walls, is to say, you drew all over the walls, but wow, this is beautiful. To teach you a lesson that this isn't the place to do that, and you need to ask permission before you paint on the walls. We're going to force you to repaint the walls yourself and hide all the stuff that you did because it's not the right place, but we're going to give you a giant piece of, paper and the space to go ahead and continue to work on this, to then give you also the tools to be set up to talk to people as to where there are walls that are appropriate to paint like this or to draw like this on this level. And that's the difference, I think, that we can all, find helpful, and that we could all go back in time and maybe be supportive in certain areas of our lives by the people closest to us in a different way. But you're an adult now. No matter how old you are, whether you're 20 years old or you're 70 years old, only you can live your life. And at this point, now that you are aware, you have to take responsibility for facing that fear and bringing out that part of yourself and being responsible for learning more about it. All right. Scorpio, I hope you found this reading illuminating. I hope you really tap into and really have the courage to see and work with this part of yourself that you've been a little afraid to up until this point. And I hope that you get a chance to take a look at your spiritual connection reading and your love connection reading. If you'd like to book a personal tarot reading with me or a one-on-one coaching session, the link to my website is in the description box below. Bye, Scorpio.